Here, I'm curious about your take on the horrible mass killing that happened in Norway this week. What are the mechanisms that would lead a person to being so ungrounded, unbalanced, and desperate as to commit such a horrendous act? Seems there must be a deep underlying and untreated trauma there, but how to detect, heal, and prevent these things, and how to view this from a conscious level. I don't really know what happened in Norway too much, but I do remember seeing a brief something that a man took a bow and went around killing people, bow and arrow. I don't know if it was terrorist related or what was happening. I would give I can't say this word tonight, hypothesis as to what happened psychologically. So the fundamental trauma is, or it's not a trauma, but the fundamental issue is the identification with the person, so the belief that who that being is the person rather than the consciousness. And then it is untreated trauma and genetics and family conditioning. So normally what leads someone to do that is it can be mental illness, but maybe mental illness is deeply related to trauma. But more than likely what happens is when they're very young, the way in which their parents or caregivers interact with them is unsafe. And so that person begins to believe that it's its own island and it has to look after itself. So it becomes isolated within itself. And in order to be able to look after itself or by itself, it needs to cut off its emotions, because emotions make you vulnerable. And so what that person's concluded is that I must never be vulnerable around everyone or anyone because they're unsafe. And then I think something physiological happens in the brain where they actually manage to cut off feeling from here downwards. Then maybe what also happens, so it's a combination of things, is their parents don't teach them empathy, or there is something in the brain which can't produce empathy, but more than likely the parents don't teach them empathy, don't know how to teach them for empathy, and don't know how to deal with that. So the child becomes its own island and is not vulnerable around anybody. And then the parents aren't teaching the child empathy. So when the person becomes its own island, it begins to believe that I am capable of looking after myself. I am totally independent. I don't need anyone to rely on, and I am better than other people. Because if I'm better than my parents, like I don't need my parents, it becomes like an arrogance, and it's a self-protection mechanism. Like I don't need them, I am better than them, and it begins to believe that about other people as well. I am better than other people. I do not need other people for my survival. I can survive all by myself, and I can do everything by myself. And then also no empathy as well. What presumably begins to happen in that body-mind mechanism is the only emotion that it experiences is anger, because it's cut off all its emotions, and so the only one that breaks through is anger and frustration, because these are very strong emotions that arise, and also it's like hurting itself. So these are the two emotions that break through. It maybe doesn't actually really experience them as a feeling in the body, but it has actions of anger and thoughts of anger. So it believes it's superior, it believes that it's an own island, it believes that it doesn't need other people for its survival. And then they begin to have anger at other people, because other people Well, firstly, there's an anger that they're unconscious of, is that they've been hurt by other people. But then there is this anger that people are so much lower, people are so inferior to me, and they create all the problems in this world, and any problem that I have is because of other people, because I'm my own island and I'm totally capable by myself. So then there begins to be strong blame, like I am superior to other people and it's these inferior people that create all the problems. And then as this builds over the years, the anger will become more and more intense, because anger is often a result of suppressed emotions, and frustration and rage is the suppressed emotions, but it's also a result of this superior thinking, like I am better than other people, and lack of empathy. Yeah, you often experience people that aren't in contact with their emotions are having anger outbursts. The other reason is because they're crossing their own boundaries and they're crossing other people's boundaries, but they have no concept of it. And they also, because they feel like a self-island, it's kind of like an attitude like nobody's ever done anything for me. It's like, and it grows, and that thinking will grow and grow and grow. And the more that they feel superior to others, and the more that that anger grows, and it's like a combination, a cocktail, the more that their delusions grow and the grandiosity grows. And so there's that part. And then also most probably what grows is suicidal feelings. I'm not positive about that. This is just a complete guess on a situation like that. So they want to die, but they can't admit that to themselves, because they're going to feel very uncomfortable in the body. And it's the anger and the frustration is the solar plexus, and there'll also be depression in there, but they aren't conscious of any of this. They're not feeling the body, but it manifests in the brain, these thoughts. So then they'll feel depressed and suicidal, but because they believe they're superior, they can't really acknowledge being suicidal. So they begin to blame and hate other people. So it's kind of like a suicide that they're committing. I know that sounds really weird. And it maybe doesn't sound logical to other people, but they are kind of committing a suicide, because when they do that, they're kind of destroying everything about their life. But it's like a superiority suicide, because it's giving their life meaning. Like, I am saving the world from these terrible people. Like, I am superior, I am better than other ones. It's all inferior people that are making this world awful. They're creating all the problems. And it's like they want to kill themselves, but they can't admit that to themselves because they feel superior. So it's like they kind of do it by thinking I'm superior and better than other people. And they kind of think that they're creating some sort of hero action by killing all these bad people. I know it sounds weird, jumps and leaps. It's more complicated, but that's what I suspect happens, is that trajectory. And it's like a combination. They maybe had like really opinionating or domineering parents or something like that. Like most probably a lot of hatred for the parents arose, a lot of passive aggression, build up of things. Like, so there's all these details that add to it. But fundamentally it will be that I am an island and I can look after myself, and I need no other humans, and I am better than other humans. I do not even need parents to look after me. So it comes from that original trauma of having unsafe parents, feeling like you have unsafe parents. And then the way they deal with it is feeling superior. And then this mass killing tends to be like the hero's way out. I don't think he killed himself, did he? But maybe the police killed him? I don't know. And then there's most probably mental health stuff that goes as well with it. But the superiority is the key. I am superior to others. Yeah, it's so sad. It's so That's terrible, like such a brutal way to... No, he was not killed. It's an amazing analysis, feels so accurate. Totally really reminds me of Del Maria movie Taxi Driver. He wasn't killed, so he's still alive, but it is a suicide because it's like he can't go back to his old life. Like his whole life died in that moment. And in a way now he's cared for by the authorities. It's really ironic. And most probably like what he desperately needs is to be cared for. Like, so now he's got complete supervision over his life. He'll most probably never admit that what he did was wrong. He'll always believe it was for the greater good. Unless he's gone into a bit of a psychosis, and then when he comes down, he realizes what he's done. But yeah, it's so brutal to kill people with an arrow. I hope that's a quick way of dying for people. Yeah, I agree. And I kind of like, there's some part of me that feels a little bit repulsed by that energy at times. But there's another part of me that has real compassion for it. Like, they really want to be loved. They don't want to be hated. They kind of have really done the opposite of what they want. Like they were screaming for help. But they just didn't know how to ask for it because they couldn't even admit it. And it's really sad in the end. Like if you could look through their perspective, like their perspective feels right and they feel just. And if you really looked at all their life, like it comes from suffering. And it's all of our responsibility in a way. Because if we want this to stop happening in society, we all have to take responsibility. They are a product of all of us. Like we're like an ants colony, like we all exist through working together. And we're not going to eradicate these people by killing them or by putting them in jail. The way that we begin to deal with this problem is by acknowledging that it's a society problem, and that in order to heal the whole, we have to heal the individuals in that society. Because if we don't heal the individuals, they will traumatize the people around them. And it's like an endless wave. Like he is an effect of other people that were traumatized. So it's like a completely different way of thinking. You know, it's not that he now needs to be punished. He needs to be freaking loved. It's so hard though, because his actions make you want to walk away. But in a way, that's what he's trying to do. I also think that society needs to be currently protected from him. But yeah, he's going to go in prison and then he'll traumatize the people in prison. There's no end to it. It has to be this acknowledgement that they are a result of all of us. They are a movement of the whole. It's not them individually, and they need our help and our support. Yeah, there was this thing that what was it about this tribe? It was so beautiful. Like when somebody lies or cheats in the tribe, like the whole tribe takes on that burden as their own. There's this whole ritual that's done through it. And they have to do a ritual and they can't leave until, what is it, like all forgiveness or something happens. Yeah. Like it's like they all take collective responsibility for it. It's not like that person's abandoned, like it's like our sins. It's beautiful. It's like a whole different way of looking at it. At the moment, we're always pointing our finger and shaming is the worst that you can do, because that person that thinks it's better, like their nemesis is shame, like feeling ashamed. So shaming them is like adding to it. And can I just say that a lot of people in our society have this dynamic, and most of them don't end up murderers. So what I explained can be a dynamic for a lot of people, like their way of coping with childhood. It's prevalent in our society. And most, like 99.999%, don't end up being a murderer. It's like a lot of very specific patterns coming together in order for that to be acted out. Yes. Like, so if you notice that in yourself, don't suddenly be feeling guilty, oh God, I'm a murderer. That's not the case. Most don't. It's like, yeah, very specific. It's funny, there's lots of questions now, but I feel like it's time for me to vamoose a bit. It's like over 2 hours now I've been speaking. But yeah, thanks Thomas for finishing with that question. I can see that you're writing something, so I'll just read that. Yes, it takes a village to raise a child. This was much more common before. This guy is already being taken care of by the healthcare system. It's understood he's mentally ill. Yeah, goes into psychosis. Yeah, and I think that Norway has one of the better prison systems in the way that it's seen as rehabilitation rather than just putting somebody in prison for a certain amount of years. Makes me want to cry, actually. Like, yeah. Like just connecting into people's suffering when they feel that desperate and do such horrific acts, and then whole of society shames you and points the finger and hates you, and then a lot of society want to kill you. Thanks for taking the question. Really appreciate it. Yes, it went into psychosis. And then psychosis is an unknowable thing. Like some people think that psychosis or mental health could originate from trauma, and some think it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. But maybe that chemical imbalance is like a family history of trauma which has never been healed. So then it gets carried on. We don't really know though. Yeah, it's so sad. And so sad for all the families of the victims. They're going to be so traumatized now by that. Just sadness all round. It just doesn't need to be like that. All we need to do is just begin to be honest with the way we feel and recognize that that isn't us. That isn't us. Yeah. Okay, my lovelies, it is the end of the talk. Remember to like this talk. Like the other day I was looking at videos on YouTube, and I saw like there was like 2,000 views on a video, and I had something like 50 likes. And I look on other videos, and it's not that I need your likes for approval. It's more that the way that YouTube works is if you like the video, it'll be shared. And if you want these streams to carry on, then part of their benefit is them being shared. So yeah, remember to like the video. I just see a like go on now. I like to like every video that I watch and I like, but I often don't because I'm not signed in. But I do try to go back and like them. Yeah. Anyway, I wish you everything, not just one thing or two things, but everything. Yeah. Lots of love. Cheers.